Welcome to my music theory and reading music course. You can read every lesson in this series at your ease at pianotheoryexercises.com, where you will also find interactive exercises to practice what you've learned. Below this video, you will find links to those lessons and exercises on the website. Also below this video, you will find a link where you can download this whole music theory course as a free ebook, so don't miss this opportunity. And if my lessons helped you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot! In lesson 8 in this music theory series, I will talk about the circle of fifths. In music, the circle of fifths can be used for various things. It gives us a good overview of how major and minor scales are organized and the appearance of sharps and flats in their scales. It can also be used for transposing music and for many other things. So let's dive into it. You learned in the previous lessons that starting from C, every time you go a fifth up, there's an extra sharp in the major scale. When, again starting from C, you go every time a fifth down, or a fourth up, that's the same, there's an extra flat in the scale. So let me start with C. As you know, the C major scale has no sharps or flats. When I go a fifth up, I arrive at the G major scale with one sharp. Another fifth up, D major scale, two sharps. One fifth up, A major scale, three sharps. Another fifth up, E major scale with four sharps. Again a fifth up is the B major scale with five sharps. And one more fifth up leads us to the F sharp major scale with six sharps. So those are all the major scales with sharps. Let's look at the left side from the C, where we will put the major scales with flat notes. From C, a fifth down or a fourth up leads us to F with one flat. The next step to B flat, two flats. Then E flat, three flats. After that, A flat with four flats. Then D flat with five flats. And finally, G flat with six flat notes. So now we've listed all the major scales with sharps and with flats. Now when you look well, you see that the major scale totally on the left, so the G flat major scale, and the major scale totally on the right, so the F sharp major scale, are exactly the same scales, since F sharp and G flat are enharmonic equivalent notes. Now we already knew this, because in a previous lesson we saw in the table that the F sharp and the G flat major scale were exactly the same scales. They had the same notes, even if they were spelled differently. Now, the fact that the F sharp and the G flat major scale are exactly the same scales means that we can display all those major scales in a circle. And in this circle, you see on the left side the major scales with flats, and on the right side the major scale with sharps, where totally on the bottom the same scale is notated either with sharps or with flats. G flat for the scale with flats and F sharp for the scale with sharps. Now remember that when we displayed this scale still in a straight line, that one step to the right was a fifth up and one step to the left was a fifth down. How is that in this circle? Well, a step to the right is a step clockwise and a step to the left is a step counterclockwise. So one step clockwise means a fifth up, one step counterclockwise means a fifth down. And that's the reason why we call this circle the circle of fifths, sometimes also called the cycle of fifths. Now, if you remember well, in the lessons about intervals, you learned that a fifth down is the same as a fourth up. So, when we turn counterclockwise, you can also say that we go a fourth up. That's why this circle is also sometimes called the circle of fourth, but I would say that circle of fifth is the most common name. Okay, let me display our circle of fifth in a nicer way. There it is. So again, you see all the major scales displayed in this circle of fifth. What about the minor scales? Well, the minor scales also have their place in this circle of fifth. Remember that the minor scales were derived from major scales, since a natural minor scale and its relative major scale contain exactly the same notes. So that means that I can display a natural minor scale in the same segment as its relative major scale. So for example, A minor comes in the same segment as C major, etc. So here you see the circle of fifths completed with also the natural minor scales. And you see that I just added an M to indicate that it's a minor scale. Now you can see directly one advantage of the circle of fifths, and that's that you can see in one overview all the major and minor scales with their sharps and flats. And you also see directly the relative minors and majors that belong to each other. Another advantage of the circle of fifths, which I already mentioned in the beginning of this video, is the fact that you can easily transpose a piece of music with the circle of fifths. Transposing is the fact that you can play a song some notes higher or lower. Assume that you play a piece and the singer cannot sing that high. Well, just transpose the whole song some tones lower and the singer can reach even the highest notes. The circle of fifths has also other advantages that you will learn as you advance in music. Another thing that you can see in the circle of fifths is that why major scales that have a root that start on a black key on the piano are mostly notated as a flat key and not as a sharp. So for example, why do we speak of the A flat major scale and not the G sharp major scale? Now I explained this already in a former lecture, but also in the circle of fifths you can see this very clearly. Starting on the G flat or F sharp major scale with 6 flats or 6 sharps. When we go up 1/5, which means turn one step clockwise, you arrive at the D flat major scale. Seen from F sharp, a fifth up, this is the C sharp major scale. C sharp having 7 sharps, 1 sharp more than the F sharp major scale. When we go even one step further, we arrive at the A flat major scale or G sharp major scale, G sharp being a fifth up from C sharp. G sharp would have 8 sharps. A flat major has only 4 flats. You could go another fifth up to arrive at the D sharp or E flat. E flat has 3 flats. D sharp would have 9 sharps, etc. Now you see clearly that it's much easier to write it with flat notes than with sharp notes, because what is easier, E flat with 3 flats or D sharp with 9 sharps? So all this and more you can see in the circle of fifths.